Hey guys, welcome back to JD Mods. We're going to be doing another video today on the RX7 where we'll be doing body work and preparing for paint. So hopefully you guys saw the last video where we completely disassembled the whole RX7 down to the bare shell. I'll show you guys a little bit closer outside here in a second. But basically I just finished washing it down with soap and water to get rid of all the grease and dirt. And now in a few seconds I'm going to go ahead and push it back into the garage, and now we can finally get started on the bodywork, which is the next step before painting. So in case you guys didn't see the last video, and I guess I have washed it since then, why don't I give you guys a quick walk around. Of course I've taken out the engine and every single engine accessory. All you see down here is the subframe, steering rack and sway bar, and the strut mounts. Basically, when I'm done moving it around, ready to paint, I'm just going to pop those nuts off, upper control arms, and I guess these sway bar mounts, and then drop all those steel components. The hinges are behind the fenders, so they can't come off until the fenders come off. I'm leaving the windshield and hatch glass. The doors are completely barren. As you can tell, they sound really tinny. Inside the car, I've removed everything, including the firewall insulation. All this kind of hard insulation I've decided to leave on and just paint over top of it. It's all covered anyway, but I don't really want to chip it all off and have to apply new stuff. It's all in really good condition. The headboard had a lot of foam on it. I never showed you guys this, but I ended up getting all the foam off. There's a lot of exposed bare metal. Some of it's starting to surface rust already, so I'm going to have to sand that down and prime it sooner than later, just due to humidity. And from washing it, I tried to dry it as quickly as possible, but obviously it is bare metal, so I will have to sand down some of the very light rust dust. There's a couple other spots, that's actually just silicone, but there's a couple of very small rust spots. Like very small surface rust, nothing crazy, especially for up here in Canada, but it will all be ground out and painted hopefully in this video or the next one. We got the gas cap and hinge off, the tail light and everything. Those two rust spots there are not the actual car, it is from the bracket that's mounted to it, kind of just like bled the rust onto it. So that's just a matter of sanding, priming, then painting with the rest of the car. The hatch is completely empty. And yeah, I think you get the point. The car is down to its bare bones. So let's go ahead and push it back into the garage, and we will finally start sanding and doing some minor body work. If you ever wondered what the ride height is for stock suspension RX7 with nothing in it, there it is right there. I would say that's a good 6 inches. Pretty hilarious to look at. Anyway, since it doesn't weigh anything, I can just quite easily push it around my garage or my driveway towards the garage. And let me show you guys something else funny, and I'll do the rest off camera. To steer it, I've put some vice grips on the steering shaft, and then as you turn it, the wheels move. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this in there. Here's the RX7 in the garage. It's actually still has to dry. I'm going to let it dry overnight before I do any more sanding or body work. So I've actually decided, since this is going to be its resting place for a while, to remove the subframe. So I'm having a bit of a hard time deciding if I should remove the subframe or not, because it'll make it a lot easier to paint, because I don't have to tape off the top of the struts or any of the subframe. Also RX7s, I'll show you this one here, have this big hole right here, so the paint will just go straight through here, muck up my rims, struts, everything, so that'd be really annoying to tape off. So I definitely want to remove this whole thing for this reason, but the reason I don't want to remove it is because I don't think I'm going to do the painting in the garage. I think I'm actually going to be very careful and do it either outside in the open on a cloudy, non-windy day, or underneath a shelter of some sort. But of course, if I remove the subframes and suspension, it won't be able to roll around. So I'll either have to pick it up or put it on some sort of casters. But I do think I like that idea. I prefer to struggle with that than struggle with taping off the subframe and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the subframe. Also, it has a bunch of these. Yeah, you can see the bag. The bag right there is covering the fuel lines, the rear brake line, and an evap or something like that line. So I'm going to go ahead and drop all that, and then we'll see how it looks. Alright guys, so I'm happy to announce the RX7 is finally ready for bodywork. So what I've done is remove the subframe. You can see here is the rear subframe, the front subframe I was able to put in a barn to get it out of the way. So quickly now, let me go ahead and show you the final stage where we can now start finally working on the bodywork and getting ready for paint. So here it is. I've removed both subframes. Here's the rear subframe with the diff, lower control arms, literally everything. All I did was undo the subframe bolts, the lines, and the strut bolts. Then it just fell right down. So now you can see underneath the car, there is absolutely nothing there to be taped off. I can spray, and I'm going to do the color coat first, and then there'll be a bit of color underneath, like in the wheel well, and underneath the car a little bit. But then I'm going to go ahead and paint the whole underside black. I'm either going to use POR 15 or undercoating or a bit of both. Let me know what you guys think about that. But essentially, I'll do one more walk around. We are ready for bodywork. You can see I've also dropped the gas tank. That was where the gas tank, you could see it from. And the filler cap now is completely empty. I'll show you one shot underneath the backside. There it is, completely empty. This is just the shell of a shell now. While we're here, I'll show you this is a little dent that I have to try and fix. But that's it. I'm now going to go ahead and do my taping off, which just consists of the two windshields, and then we will start the bodywork. So there's the windshields taped off. For the front one, I did the outside and the inside because that's always going to be staying with the car. But for the hatch, I have not done the inside yet because after I do the sanding on the outside of the hatch, my plan is to take the hatch off so that I can paint. Oh, still pretty heavy. Kind of like this underside part all the way up underneath the hinges and kind of where the whole trim sits. And then with the hatch off the car, I can tape the inside glass and paint both sides very easily to make sure that all the trim areas have paint on them, which is very important for a full color change. And then after I did that, what I went ahead and did was placed little wire numbers all over the car where I noticed there was a dent. You can see from this angle the disturbance in the clear coat. There is clearly a probably door ding right there. Down here it looks like it was hit with something. I wouldn't say it's frame damage by any means, just definitely a little bunged up. And then there's another one right there. Actually, they look pretty bad on camera, but in person they're not even that bad. So I went around and placed these little numbers wherever I saw anything from a minor dent, like number 7 there, to probably the biggest dent on the car on this fender right here. And then there's a bunch of little dents, and you can see in the camera on the clear coat, kind of just like, almost like hail type dents, kind of just in random spots on the car. So basically, I've now decided it's finally time to start tackling the dents, and why not start with one of the bigger ones first. Also, the nice thing about the fender is that you can work from the inside, especially with the wheel removed. I know it's really dark in here, but since that's just one piece of metal, with some heat, some pry bar, and some different various hammers, I'm going to see if I can work that out a little bit. I really don't want to have to buy a new fender, but if I have to, then I have to. You can see that's where it got pinched the most. So after I pop it out, I might actually pop that in, then do a skim layer of Bondo and go from there. So let me go ahead and see what I can do with that fender. Alright, so I did a little bit of work to the dent over here. As you can see, the center's a lot higher, but I still have now a bunch of multiple dings around it. So I'm going to work with massaging that a little bit more in a sec or two. And then definitely going to have to use a bit of body filler on this. I'm going to get it all down. Then probably just do a skim layer of Bondo. Because my metalworking skills are nowhere near good enough to fix that without Bondo, unfortunately. I'll try a little bit harder in a second, but I just don't think I'm quite there yet. And I also took a break and decided to block sand the clear coat off of the left hand or passenger side fender for this car. And so what I realized was when sanding off the clear coat, it was a really good way of telling where the dents were, because it would leave little clear coats in the low spots. So I found two dents that I've mainly worked out actually. You can see this one's still a little bit rough. I may do a skim coat of Bondo on this one over here. But right here where you can actually see I made it into a bit of a high spot by accident. After block sanding it, you can see it's all matte now compared to the rest of the car. There would be a little bit of clear coat in this section in the middle of the screen. And then what I did was just heated it up with my heat gun, and then used a few little hammers from the inside of the fender and just lightly popped it out, and then block sanded it back down, and the clear coat went away, and I actually sanded through to some of the primer, which means it was a little too high. But now with my hand it feels pretty good. I may work it out a little bit more, but that is probably the technique I'm going to use for the rest of the body panels. You can see something happened to this car. There's just little dents everywhere. And the door kind of all right in a line back there. You can kind of see them just over here. So I'm going to probably go ahead and block sand the door, maybe the roof, some of the corridor, the hatch. Also, let me walk around here. I'll show you the before of the hatch. Thankfully is dent free. I do not like fixing dents. I'm not very good at it. But it does have lots of this peeling clear coat. But obviously that's okay because I can block sand that right out. So I'm going to go ahead and do some work off camera. Not super exciting. Then I will get right back to you. But one more thing I should say. The bottom of FDs have this rock guard stuff. You can see it's very textured, almost like bed liner. And on every single body panel on the side of the car, the last probably around 6 inches is covered in this stuff. And the problem is that when trying to sand the clear coat off, of course it comes off the high points first. But inside the rock guard, you cannot sand it off. And I've done some research, and a lot of people just sand it all the way smooth. So it kind of gets rid of the texture, which I'm going to do. And if I ever want to bring it back, you can always spray some texture on the bottom, then repaint it. But that sounds like a lot of work. So for today, I'm probably just going to work on taking that off. And I will go ahead and continue my sanding. There's another shot of the peeling clear coat on the roof. I will show you guys after probably about an hour of sanding. So after realizing that I got myself into a pretty big mess, I decided to just power through and do a whole bunch of work. But now that I've got a lot of stuff done, as you can see behind me, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a little walk around on how the progress is going and what's still left to do. Alright, so here is the current state of the mess I am in. We'll just start right here in front of me. I've got the hatch sanded down. You can see I've kind of taken off all that peeling clear coat and blended it in quite nicely. It's perfectly smooth to the touch. Still to do on the hatch is on the inside, because I just recently took it off. So I just got to sand the inside, the visible part, and also underneath of where the trim is, your hatch trim, because I want it to be a nice complete paint job. So in a little bit I'm just going to flip it over, sand the inside before painting. Both the doors are pretty much ready to go. I've got the outsides all sanded down. I had to do a bit of dent removal, and I'll admit it's not 100% perfect, but I don't think it ever will be. I think you can see the one small dent right there. I might try a little bit more to get that out, but that's the only one. I'm not going to be too upset. Here's the driver's side door, I guess. It's looking pretty good. It had a whole bunch of dents, and I've taken most of them out. One or two are still really faint, but I didn't want to apply Bondo if I didn't have to. So instead, I'm just going to live with minor dents. Here's the pair of fenders. The driver's side one was in really good condition, just needed to be sanded down, which as you can see, I've done there. There was one minor dent which I popped out with a heat and a hammer. And then this, of course, is the driver's side fender. Sorry, I think I called this one the driver's side fender. It's going to take a while to get used to right-hand drive. But for this one, obviously had that big old dent. And I'm definitely no master at Bondo, but I've tried my best. And we'll see how smooth it is when I prime it. And if it's still a little bit too rough, I'll just do a bit more body filler and smooth it out a little more. But I think it's going to be okay. So those are all the panels that I've taken off and are pretty much done. Let's take a walk over here together to the bumpers. The rear bumper here had no damage, so I just finished sanding off all the clear coat. I know it looks really shiny still, but that's just because of the sunlight. It is really dull, especially compared to, yeah, you can tell the difference. The front bumper has not been sanded yet, and that is because it has, unfortunately, a little bit of damage. I can show you guys real quick. It has a whole bunch of cracks in the plastic, so I'm gonna try and weld it back together with my plastic welder. And then it just has a bunch of spidering paint, like where it's spider chipped, and also a couple spots right up here where it's just flaking off. So this definitely needs a lot of work. It might be the first time I take out my electric sander, because that is a lot of sanding ahead of me. If it doesn't work out, there's a local bumper for sale for 300 bucks I could pick up, but I'm going to try and save the money and fix it myself since it's really not that bad of condition. And then that leaves the last part, which is the shell itself. So I've not done any sanding on the shell. Here looks like where someone didn't properly prime it. That is all just very surface rust. I'll be able to sand that off in probably 10 minutes. Down to the bare metal, and then I'll properly prime it to make sure it doesn't come back. And aside from that, this driver's side rear quarter is pretty much perfect, and the bottom of the sill nice and dent free, just has to be sanded on the driver's side. Those three spots are just surface rust. Gonna take that down to the bare metal. That's actually from the bracket that was bolted to it. It's not actually rusty itself. And then the passenger or left hand side is where we have a couple issues. We have a dent here which I marked, and that one's kind of tricky for me because you can't just push on the other side of the panel. I'm going to try a few different techniques to try and get that dent out. And then down here, I'm having a bit of a hard time with all the bottom dents. You can see it was attempted to be filled in with Bondo. So I'll probably just grind it off and redo the Bondo fill, as it is quite a big dent in a really hard steel area. I don't think it'll pop out very well, unfortunately. But the other tricky part is that finish, the rough finish on the bottom of the RX7. I don't really know if I'll be able to replicate that. We'll see if I can do some research and figure out how to do that. But if not, I might just have to have it kind of smooth. Then just a couple dents over here, unfortunately. Don't know why this car is so dented, but we're going to try and fix that. And then in terms of inside the car and the engine bay, I'm just going to take Scotch-Brite and really just rough up the surface, not spend too much time on it because it's all covered up anyway. But I am going to be probably painting it, so it is nice for the paint to stick properly. And then just sanding the roof, the A-pillars, and some of the cowling areas. And that is all the prep work I need before I start laying down some paint. Time for another update. I have finished some of the body work. Even though this was just a small dent, it was really hard to get every part of it out, and there was about 2 dents. I actually found one just over there. So this isn't because of rust or anything. I really didn't want to have to use Bondo, but I'm trying my best to get this body perfect, so I did have to use a little skim layer. Hopefully my sanding job turns out okay. I used a bit of Bondo on some of the dents down here, and I fixed up that massive dent I showed you guys earlier. The only problem is that I sanded off pretty much all of the kind of like rock guard texture, so now it's going to be perfectly smooth. If it looks really silly, I can just respray it or sand down the rest of it, but that's a lot of work. So I'm hoping it doesn't look too bad with it being smooth and some of it being rough. But yeah, if it looks really dumb, I can just spray it over again. So I sanded down the entire roof. All these marks here are where there was kind of chipping paint. I don't really know why it was like that, but there's a couple of those spots. Sanded the A-pillars. I sanded both door jambs. And let's move over here. I sanded those old little rust spots off the back. I still got to scuff up kind of that whole back panel a little bit. But I sanded inside where the hatch goes. You guys also might remember that there was some surface rust up there. I took care of that. It's no longer there anymore. And then I did the entire engine bay. I used Scotch-Brite and roughed up the entire engine bay. Also, there was some kind of surface rust spots from metal brackets touching the steel. Right here for the headlights was one of them, and kind of like these mounting holes over here had the odd one. I just used some 100 grit to take it off, and then some Scotch-Brite to make it nicer. It's an engine bay, so if there are some deeper scratches, I don't really care as much, which is why I didn't use a finer grit. I just got it done with a heavier grit. But now, as you can see, the entire engine bay is literally completely rust free, ready for paint as well. And so now all I have to do is the interior, the back of the car, and the bumper. But when I went into the interior to grind off the rust over here, we actually did go through. So this floor pan, I guess probably because this is where the driver's gas pedal is, all the water from his boot, potentially even salt, seemed to get into the floor. Now, luckily the frame does have some surface rust, but it is still nice and hard, so I'm just going to grind that off. The floor, on the other hand, is kind of soft. I found the edge of it up here. It goes till just about the curve there, till about here. So it's probably about 4 inches this way, and it looks like it stops just under here, under this kind of like detoning stuff. So I have to peel back some of the detoning stuff. I'm going to grind that out 100%, and I bought the stuff to replace it. This I believe is either 16 or 18 gauge, I kind of forget. Sheet steel. The tag is really worn off, so I don't really remember, but it's really sturdy and it's definitely thicker than what's on there already. So I'm going to go ahead, cut out that rust, make a template out of cardboard, cut it out of this, and try and tack it in place, show you guys how it looks. Quick update on the rust repair. So as you can see, I cut all of the rust out. Also underneath, I can show you that right now actually. I think. Yep, there it is. So as you can see, I cut out all the rust, ground away the underbody coating. There's the frame. I ground all the rust off the frame and then painted the inside that won't be welded with some rust converter and then trim clad. And then back inside the car here, what I did was made up a cardboard template, that hole I just showed you, and then quickly whipped up this metal template. Let me try and show you guys with one hand here how well it fits. Hold with me here for a second. Fits really good, but because you can't see anything, I'm going to go ahead and tack it in place, then do my full weld and show you guys the final patch. Alright guys, so before I show you the final product, just remember 2 things. First of all, I'm using a $300 flux core mastercraft welder, and secondly, this is what we took out. So if it doesn't look that great, just remember that it probably is better than this. So let me show you guys what I did. So here's a view from the inside. You can see my flux core created quite a bit of splatter, but I would say it did okay otherwise. I basically just did on and off, like I pulsed it to prevent it from burning through the really thin sheet steel. So I think I did pretty good, and I could have just left it probably at one side just because it's not supporting much. As you can tell, it is very strong. Before, when it was rusted away, if you pushed kind of on this circle piece, it would bend due to the lack of support from the floor to the frame. So let me show you guys underneath. Also, there is the welder I'm talking about, just a little flux core unit, but you know what? As you're about to see, I think it did the job decently okay. And here's underneath. Hopefully you guys can see that. I think it went pretty good underneath as well. I got a little bit bubblegummy along the frame just because it wasn't making very good contact or whatever. But overall, I think I did very good considering what I had. Okay everybody, so here is what I've decided to do. It's been a few days, so I kind of forget where we left off, but here's where we are now. Everything is sanded, waxed and degreased, taped off, but I've decided to not overwhelm myself, and I left the shell for now. It needs a little bit of sanding on the roof, degreased, blown off with air, and then it can be primed. But we have fully prepared the rear bumper, the hatch. There's all the accessories which are ready to go, but I'm not spraying them tonight. We have both fenders and both doors inside and out. As you can see, I hung them up so I can spray both sides fairly easily. Hopefully this way I don't get any runs, because I know laying them down like the hatch here is probably a lot better for runs, but this is a lot easier for spraying. So here's my setup. I got my air compressor teed into this 11 gallon. So now it's 16 gallons, 3 horsepower. Should be plenty for my setup. And here's the thing we're using today. So we got the air going into an air water separator filter thing, going into a gauge at the gun, going to my on sale 1.8 millimeter gun, which is good for primers. And then what we're going to be spraying right now, let's take a look. It is this U-POL high build primer. We're going to be mixing it in with the hardener, filtering it as we mix it in. Don't need that anymore. Then of course giving it a stir, and right before I'm ready to spray, after we got the spray pattern figured out and everything, I'm going to do a tack cloth on the panels we're spraying today. And then I'm going to go ahead and spray. So I'll go ahead and set the camera up as a time lapse and see what happens. Alright guys, so here's the deal. I finally finished priming everything. It laid down really rough. I did 2 different guns over a couple of days and finally got it fairly smooth to the touch. I had to do a lot of wet sanding on the entire shell. So here's the entire shell primed, and you'll notice I am missing a lot of my other components that used to be hanging from the ceiling, because what I'm doing now is painting the base coat, the Montego blue, on the shell. I'm not going to rush. I'm going to do just the shell tonight, and then all the overspray, instead of landing on my hatch and all the crap that used to be here, it's just going to land on the ground so I don't have to do more sanding, and then hopefully this stays nice and flat. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot this with some base color now, and because this video is super long, I'm not going to film it. I'm just going to do it and show you guys the final product, then I'm going to clear it. Here we go. I will, however, mention that I'm shooting it with this 1.4mm Princess Auto spray gun with regulator and air separator. I'm going to see how good of a paint job this little gun does. And I'm using this Omni paint, it's just the one they gave me, with some urethane grade reducer. And of course I'm going to be wearing my safety protection, and before I spray the car I'm going to give it a wipe down with this tack cloth, which is like a little cheesecloth. Alright, now I'll show you when it's done. Hey guys, so here's the story. You saw in the last clip me getting ready to spray the shell with base coat. So let me tell you guys a quick little story. Basically, I live in Canada and this is end of September, which means the days can be really hot, like high 20s, or really low, like 5 degrees in the nighttime. So really weird temperatures. And basically last week I had this nice little window last weekend of nice weather, and I decided to seize the opportunity, and because I was in a rush, still learning how to paint, and I did make a couple mistakes, I decided not to do much filming, and instead try and keep this video as short as possible, even though I know it's probably still going to be like an hour long, so sorry about that. But I just powered through the base coat. One of the mistakes I made that I'll share with you guys in case you guys don't know is that you must spray the clear coat within a window of time after spraying the base coat. This is probably obvious to people who paint, but I'm used to just, you know, letting one coat like completely harden and then doing the next coat or dry. And this is not the case, as the clear coat chemically bonds to the base coat, so I ended up having to respray the entire shell before clear coating, had to buy more paint. So long story short, it took me a lot longer than I originally thought, but it is now 100% done. Let me quickly show you guys the panels to finish off this video. So, sorry about the lighting, it does not do the color justice, but here is my painted car. Let me try and get you guys some good angles. You can see the Montego blue, how it kind of shines green in some lighting. I'm really happy with how it turned out. I was able to do it without really any runs. That's literally just dust. If I blow it off, you can see it's nice and clean underneath. Pretty much nothing got in the clear coat. I got really lucky. No runs of the base coat, a couple clear coat runs because I laid it on heavy, because that's better than light. You can always sand out runs, but if it's too light, it can peel off and flake off and stuff. So really not that bad. You can see my bodywork jobs turned out okay. I also painted the entire shell. I only clear coated the engine bay. I didn't waste any clear coat on the inside of the car. Also, I was running low on base coat, so some of the inside is sprayed a little lighter than I would have liked. But as you'll find out in future videos, I'm going to be covering pretty much every surface in sound deadening and heat deadening or heat reflective insulation to really help the comfort of this car. So really the fact that this is a little bit too light, I don't really mind. It's more just to cover up the gray primer. Here's all my accessories, like the fender vents, the mirrors, more mirror stuff, and the headlight covers. Let me take you guys on a little tour over here to all my panels. Of course, I also cleared the door jambs. Pretty much, if it's not covered up, I decided to clear it. So here we have my doors. look very nice, in my opinion. This, of course, is no sanding or waxing. I'm going to let it harden up for a very long time before I do that. We got our fenders right here. Fenders turned out good. The only issue was because I painted them fixtured like this. It was really hard to get this area right here, and so one of them is a little bit light. So from the engine bay, you'll kind of be able to tell. If I really want, I could fix it, but I don't think I'll care enough. And then, of course, we have the hatch, which you guys might remember was really bad looking because of the clear coat peeling, and now obviously it looks beautiful. I also painted and cleared the visible parts of the hatch, as well as the entire inside of the hatch, the doors. So literally there is no more silver on this car. All of the overspray in the wheel wells and underneath the car doesn't matter because I'm undercoating the entire thing, which makes sense because it is completely empty right now. No subframes, nothing. And the last thing I'll say before finishing off this video is over here, I have done some black painting with Rust-Oleum and then 2K clear over top. I painted the door handles and a bunch of door, hood, and hatch hinges. Here's an example of how they turned out. I sandblasted all of the rust off of them, so I think they look very nice. Pretty much every metal bracket on this car I took off, sandblasted, and painted black. There's a couple more under there. Really bad lighting. I'm just going to stop now. But there's the update on the RX7. So I'm sorry this turned into a much longer video and I didn't show too much detail. This will definitely be the longest video of this entire series, including motor rebuilding and anything else. So stay tuned for the next video when I start to put those panels back on my car. Then I'm going to rebuild the interior, the subframes, and underneath the car. Then we're finally going to dive into the motor and all the braided brake lines, fuel lines. Let me know in the comments down below kind of if you guys want to see anything specific with this car, or if I should do stock versus modified, stuff like that. Let me know what you guys think. And as always, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.